I think the elites believe in karmic law, and I think they play a lot of games on people to get people to voluntarily do things they otherwise wouldn't do. And I think that's what a lot of the manipulations in media and in society are kind of ultimately about at the end of the day.
They want you to consent. They want you to choose it. And that is because if you walk into the cage willingly, they never have to force you. Every authoritarian system in history has promised the same thing. That is, safety, security, and protection from the dangerous other. And every time, people traded freedom for that promise. Every time, they regretted it.
I think it's really hard to know because, of course, the future is unwritten and a lot of it depends on us. And there's an unprecedented effort, of course, to propagandize the American people, to have us willingly walk in and support and consent to these systems being installed. Because a lot of people forget. But the ban on propaganda being used domestically against Americans was lifted under the Obama administration.
Today, we're breaking down how control is rebranded as safety and why you need to recognize it before it's too late. Let's start with the words, because language matters, and the people selling you digital prisons know exactly which words work. For instance, safety. Who's against safety? Then there's health. Who doesn't want to be healthy? And lastly, there is inclusion. Who wants to exclude people? These words are weaponized. They're designed to make you feel like a bad person for asking questions.
They're a major AI engine for Wall Street banks, for example, and they have different, programs that are sold to different entities, but ultimately they are a massive contractor to essentially every U.S. intelligence agency, and that includes DHS and ICE, which a lot of the critical reporting on Palantir focuses on their contracts with ICE specifically, but all of that is intended to also be used against people that are not illegal immigrants. It's meant to be an entire dragnet of basically pre-crime, and Palantir, in concordance with Poindexter's ambitions, has been a major piloter of pre-crime technology in the United States. I think they began doing that in New Orleans initially, but they call it predictive policing is the term that they use. But a lot of other companies have attempted to also get in on this. One of the most notorious being Predpol, that was a partnership, I believe, with UCLA and LAPD or something to that effect. And they're notoriously inaccurate, and they're almost always piloted in low-income minority neighborhoods, and basically are a way in essence, what happens because the accuracy rate is so low is that you're creating this pipeline of people basically being sent to prison or, being caught up in crimes that are very petty. But you're just sending police to all these areas in a relatively, discriminatory way.
Pre-crime, predictive policing, algorithms that are worse than a coin toss, but they keep using them anyway. Why? Because accuracy isn't the point that they are trying to drive at. Control is. But there is one thing about every authoritarian power grab. There is a need for an enemy. Someone to be afraid of. Someone dangerous enough that you'll give up anything to be protected. After 9/11, it was terrorists. During COVID, it was the unvaccinated. Now, it's domestic extremists.
And I think a lot of what we're going to see is going to be sort of a repeated trope of what we saw on the war on terror. We have to give up all of these new freedoms, or all of these freedoms and things like that, because we have to go after Al Qaeda and get them at all costs. But now, 20 plus years later, you have, the head of Al Qaeda in Syria being given a diplomat, I don't even know what to call it. It's so ridiculous. Like a red carpet welcome to shake hands with David Petraeus and all of this. So we lost all of our freedoms, but now Al Qaeda is just, let's shake hands and let them come to the UN while we don't let anyone from Palestine come. It's totally insane. So I think it's...
Think about that. 20 years of giving up privacy, freedom, constitutional rights, all to fight an enemy that the government is now shaking hands with. You were lied to. The threat was exaggerated, and the temporary measures became permanent. and you never got your freedoms back.
Quite possible that given that we're seeing this effort to gin up a war on domestic terrorism yet again, we're going to be given another invisible enemy and told that we need to give up all of these remaining freedoms and civil liberties to go after the domestic terrorists.
Now they're doing it again. Same playbook, but a different enemy. And this time, the terrorists are American citizens who disagree with government policy.
And I think a lot of what's going to be done here is it's going to be, if we allow it, political opposition could be labeled terrorism, quote unquote. And to think that this wouldn't come back on people on the right as well, I think is naive. The definition of domestic terrorist under the Biden administration concluded people that were outraged by perceived government overreach, for example, which could easily include people on the right as well. I mean, a lot of the things in the definitions of these things are incredibly vague and just meant, to sort of be a catch-all for people who don't agree with the government.
What this means is that if you are outraged by government overreach, you're a potential terrorist. If you question the narrative, you are a domestic extremist. If you protest a policy, you are a threat to national security. The definitions are deliberately vague, because vague definitions can be applied to anyone. And just like this lie they always use, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear, it sounds reasonable, but it's one of the most dangerous lies ever told.
Are you in essence just creating profiles? I mean, these are just creating profiles for every American citizen?
Well, ultimately, I mean, that's been acknowledged now. I think there was a report on that a few months ago. The Trump administration was explicitly using Palantir to make databases on every American.
They're not just watching criminals, they're profiling everyone. Every American citizen, every purchase, post, and movement. And the system isn't designed to catch you doing something illegal. It's designed to predict what you might do in the future.
And the pilot program for that was being pitched during the Trump era was called Safe Homes. It's an acronym. And basically that was about using AI to scan American social media posts en masse to determine what they called early warning signs of neuropsychiatric violence. And that people that were flagged by that algorithm could then be sent to, a court-ordered physician or put under house arrest or all sorts of.
Safe Homes. Notice the acronym. Notice the branding. Safety again. But what it actually means is that AI scans your social media, flags you for early warning signs, sends you to a court-ordered psychiatrist, or puts you under house arrest before you've done anything. There you have it. Pre-crime. Minority Report. Sold as safety.
At the end of the day. And so if there's a particular policy, for example, digital ID or things like that you're against, you have to ultimately commit to not participate in them, even if efforts are made to manipulate you into consenting to that. And a lot of those efforts are based around fear about something.
The manipulation is based on fear. Fear of terrorism, fear of crime, fear of disease, fear of the other. And once you're afraid, you'll accept anything that promises to make you safe. This isn't new. Governments have been manipulating public perception for decades, but the tools have gotten more sophisticated.
I think a very instructive video, our documentary into this, is Adam Curtis's Century of the Self, which talks about the work of Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud, that simultaneously developed public relations for the corporate world and propaganda for the public sector, because ultimately public relations is propaganda for corporations at the end of the day, right? So he sort of developed that and saw the masses as sort of these animals prone to animalistic whims and how to control the masses.
Edward Bernays, the father of propaganda, literally wrote the book on how to manipulate the masses. Public relations for corporations, propaganda for governments. Same techniques, just different labels. He believed ordinary people were irrational animals who needed to be controlled by an enlightened elite.
And it's very easy to manipulate how people perceive reality today. That same Schmidt-Kissinger book I've been referencing doesn't refer to AI as like a revolution in the sense of making people's lives easier and all of this stuff, but as really a revolution in perception, how people perceive reality. So ultimately, you could argue that the elites sort of view it as the ultimate perception management tool.
AI isn't about making your life easier. According to Eric Schmidt and Henry Kissinger's own book, it's about controlling perception, controlling how you see reality. If they control what you think is real, they control everything.
So in 2014, the U.S. Air Force started investigating how to use social media to control people like drones. They spent like a couple $1 million on that research proposal, and other parts of the military and intelligence communities have researched social media for those same ends.
2014. The U.S. Air Force openly researched how to use social media to control people like drones. That was a decade ago. Imagine what they can do now.
A few years ago, it came out that Facebook was manipulating people's news feeds to manipulate their emotions to make them more depressed, and we're conducting studies. And so they can tailor your news feed directly to you. They're like, this person is doing stuff we don't like. We're gonna, bombard them with stuff that's gonna make them miserable and depressed. Yeah. So they don't do stuff or don't do this, or they make this decision, or they act this way. They absolutely do that. So I think people need to be very aware.
Facebook admitted to running psychological experiments on users, manipulating emotions, making people depressed on purpose. Why? To control behavior, to make you compliant, and make you too demoralized to resist. So how do you recognize when you're being manipulated? There is a pattern. Step 1. Create or amplify a crisis. Step 2. Propose a solution that expands government, corporate power. Step 3. Brand it with safety language. Step 4. Make it voluntary, but attach penalties for non-compliance. And Step 5. Make it permanent. COVID was the trial run. Vaccine passports weren't mandatory, technically, but if you didn't comply, you couldn't work, couldn't travel, couldn't participate in society. That's the model. Voluntary compliance enforced through coercion. And it's not just about tracking you. It's about breaking down your identity, your sense of self, your connection to the nation, community, and family. And that is because atomized, isolated, confused people are easier to control.
I think ultimately we're being led on this sort of march to global government that is technocratic in nature, and then will be inherently, at some point, authoritarian, but is going to be marketed as sort of everyone will have a more equal seat at the table type of thing.
The end game is global technocratic government, ruled by algorithms and unelected elites, marketed as inclusive, sold as safe, enforced as authoritarian. Whitney Webb's warning is clear. They're not forcing you, but they are manipulating you and selling control as safety and surveillance as protection. The bright side is that the system only works if you comply. That is, if you accept the narrative and trade freedom for the illusion of safety. But there's still time. Start by building parallel systems, opt out of surveillance platforms, reject digital IDs, refuse programmable money, and support decentralized alternatives. And don't forget, the moment you say, "I have nothing to hide," you've already lost. The question isn't whether you have something to hide. The question is, do you want to be free?